You're watching This Week in Louisiana Politics with Fred Childers.
Good morning, I'm Fred Childers. Hope you're having a great weekend. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics on your local election headquarters. Well, lawmakers made a push to increase the state minimum wage with 4 different bills this week, but all were denied in committee. Businesses say the cost would be detrimental. Workers say they can't afford to live. Political reporter Shannon Hecht explains.
Louisiana uses the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25, which was raised last in 2009. Tipped workers make $2.13 an hour, which has not been raised since 1991. Lawmakers and advocates are once again trying to establish a higher wage in the state to combat the poverty rates.
But if you really value them, you would pay them. I would not have had to hear that lady say that she has to work a full day just to pay for gas to get here.
Representatives and business groups say that people should be trying to work up towards higher paying jobs over time. The Louisiana Association of Business and Industry also says the increase in wages will be a major cost to small businesses, one they can't afford.
There needs to be a toolbox for the workers. There is one. It's our education and training programs.
One bill was aimed at just state workers, another for just tipped workers, and 2 for every worker at different amounts. The vote was down party lines on each bill. There was also a bill by Representative Kyle Green that would ensure equal pay for women. Louisiana ranks among the bottom of the list for fair wages for women, but that bill was also shot down by representatives saying there are already laws on the books that protect such things. At the Capitol for your local election headquarters, I'm Shannon Hecht.
Just one day after a Senate panel voted to repeal the Raise the Age law, the district attorney for Iberville Parish, Tony Clayton, says raising the age limit in the first place was a mistake. The Raise the Age law kept 17-year-olds in juvenile centers. Repealing it would mean they'll end up in adult prisons. The DA says these teens are largely responsible for the increase in violent crimes lately, but not everyone agrees.
17-year-olds are kids. They're juniors in high school. Tony Clayton, the district attorney from the 18th Judicial District, said he wanted to have the choice about whether, about what to do about these 17-year-olds, but this law actually takes away his choice.
The Raise the Age Act was signed into law in 2016. If it's repealed, Louisiana would become the 4th state to consider 17-year-olds adults in the court system. A bill seeks to increase the maximum sentence for dealing dangerous drugs like fentanyl or heroin and lower the punishment for those who help provide information for an investigation. Rachel Riley brings us the details.
The bill passed seeks to increase the maximum sentence for those who are involved in controlled dangerous substances like fentanyl and lower the punishment for those who help provide information for an investigation.
Something needs to be done to say Louisiana is a no-no. Get your out of this state.
Bob Broussard, passionate about his daughter, lost her at just the age of 20 years old in 2021 after she unknowingly took a substance that was laced with fentanyl.
And they were experimenting college students, and all 3 of them hit the deck. 2 of them made it and 1 of them did not.
Broussard sits in front of the House committee alongside State Representative Roy Darrell Adams, urging for something to be done.
It's really important for us to all know that our children are in danger.
House Bill 844 would increase the maximum penalty for the use and distribution of fentanyl from 5 to 10 years, and another bill would release the names of the offenders.
But if we could get information on the higher-up drug dealers, we would lower the time back down.
Some, like State Representative Denise Marcel, say throwing more people in jail doesn't work.
We're good at locking people up in Louisiana. We've always been that. We're number 1, right? But it didn't make us any safer.
Some also say that locking offenders up longer and without access to rehab is detrimental.
You are taking away the ability for some people to get treatment.
Despite opposition, the 2 bills were passed. The 2 bills are expected to hit the House floor in about a week. From the Capitol, Rachel Riley, Fox 44 News.
Top-ranking troopers with state police admit Ronald Green's death in 2019 was a cover-up. One witness testified that he retired from the agency in disgust. The top brass says Green's death was torture and murder. They told a special House committee they were asked to delete a crash report and video from a shared drive. Troopers were among several witnesses who gave stunning testimony Thursday.
Here's the deal. We talk cover-up, potential cover-ups. We're agreeing with y'all.
I think you can classify retirees with state police in the last 3 to 6 years, even. 1 of 3 ways. People that get their time and they just go. People that retire in disgrace. And I think there's people that retire in disgust, and I'm one of those.
Coroners from Ouachita and Union parishes also testified. They say parts of the initial coroner's report are missing. A bill that looks to ban housing discrimination against the LGBTQ community passed out of the Louisiana House Committee, shocking even those in favor. The bill by State Representative Amy Freeman would add gender identity and sexual orientation to the list of reasons someone can't be turned away from renting or buying property. She says existing state law causes confusion and opens the window for discrimination.
We haven't always had the civil rights protections that we have today. And as they've been added at the federal level, it has often taken Louisiana decades to finally include them in our state laws. Dragging our feet to denounce discrimination in our state code is not something that I think we're proud of.
There was a vote to defer the bill, but it fell short. Advocates were surprised when it then passed without objection. It now heads to the full House, and we'll keep an eye on it. Lawmakers are looking to get Louisiana ahead before FEMA releases the next wave of grant money for hazard mitigation. A bill by Representative Mandy Landry would create a fund through GOSEP to manage applications for low-interest revolving loans for these projects. Cities and parishes will be able to apply through the state to use the money for projects, as well as give it to residents to elevate their homes. Some want to make sure homeowners are getting a fair cut of the loans. The exact rules of how the grant money can be spent is yet to be released, but lawmakers hope putting this legislation in place now will help Louisiana be first in line for that money. A bill looking to ban the controversial practice of conversion therapy for LGBTQ youth stalled in committee. Advocates are hoping the fight is not over yet, while religious groups push back. Shannon Hecht breaks down the arguments.
Conversion therapy has been widely discredited by medical professionals across the country as ineffective and also harmful to LGBTQ youth. But there is still some hang-ups in the committee over religious beliefs and over the clear definition of what this therapy is. A number of medical agencies have denounced the practice, citing it as dramatically increasing the rate of mental health issues and suicide in LGBTQ youth who are forced into it. The bill would ban the practice by licensed medical professionals and would make it punishable by their medical boards.
I did not hear one medical professional come up and testify against this bill. This is not an anti-Christian bill. This is a human rights bill.
The main opposition came from religious groups who claimed it would take away the right to religious teachings. The bill does not say anything about a ban on such things, and religious groups can still take part in the practice.
As far as I know, Louisiana law still prohibits sodomy, so I just don't see how this meshes with this bill.
After dispute over the language of the bill, it stalled in committee with a 6-6 vote. Representative Mandy Landry hopes to work with members to bring it back.
I think it is realistic. I think there were a couple specific people in there that was their hang-up.
20 states across the nation have already banned the use of conversion therapy, none in the Deep South. Advocates that are against this practice say that they're not going to give up hope just yet on this bill for this session. They're hoping that changing a little bit of the language and clearly defining what this practice is will get some of the representatives to flip their votes. At the Capitol for your local election headquarters, I'm Shannon Hecht.
Well, the CCorps Power's captain and crew did not receive vital information that could have prevented the tragic capsizing of the ship the day of the incident, according to the National Transportation Safety Board's investigative docket, which was released to the public on Wednesday. According to reports in the docket, crew members on board the CCorps Power did not know the severe weather conditions coming their way when they left the dock around 6 a.m. That was on April 13th, 2021. 7 crew members aboard the CCorps Power that day still have not been found. Governor John Bel Edwards announces some major changes coming to the energy sector in an effort to make Louisiana a leader in fighting climate change. That's next. Stay with us.
This is your local election headquarters.
Governor John Bel Edwards and energy leaders discussed the major changes coming to the energy industry in Louisiana and the Gulf of Mexico conference. Rachel Riley looked into the plans.
Change is happening. It's going to happen. And if you don't position yourself to best take advantage of that change, we will be left behind.
This change Governor John Bel Edwards refers to is the balancing act energy producers need to be aware of when it comes to making money and using cleaner energy.
We know that fossil fuels and carbon emissions play a role in our changing climate, and that an energy transition is happening.
Edwards says he's working to keep the state a leading energy producer while addressing the climate crisis.
This year, we are proudly bringing an annual plan to the legislature that will invest $1.35 billion in coastal infrastructure.
Entergy CEO Leo Denault plans to up the strength of their equipment like poles and towers to help reduce power outages.
Designing and constructing electrical infrastructure strong enough to withstand storms that are striking again with increased intensity.
He says the funding for these structures would be hefty.
Diligently seek federal funding that helps offset these costs with enhancements for our customers to keep those costs low.
Entergy says they're working alongside stakeholders to invest in cleaner energy solutions.
We have plans for 11,000 megawatts of additional renewable energy deployment by the end of 2030.
That's roughly enough to power New York City for a day. Rachel Riley, NBC Local 33 News.
One of President Biden's closest aides is leaving the White House to take on a new role. His name's probably familiar. Former Louisiana Congressman Cedric Richmond will serve as a senior advisor to the Democratic National Committee as Democrats prepare for a challenging midterm election. Richmond has served as co-chair of the president's 2020 presidential campaign before joining the White House as senior advisor and director of the Office of Public Engagement. Corporal punishment in Louisiana schools could be going away for good if one lawmaker has her way. We'll talk to her one-on-one about the legislation she filed. That's next.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back to This Week in Louisiana Politics. We're going to talk about corporal punishment in Louisiana schools. The current state law allows individual school boards to make the decision on whether or not to allow corporal punishment to be doled out to the students. However, a state lawmaker wants to change that. She wants to prohibit corporal punishment in all schools. She is Representative Stephanie Hilferty, a Republican from Metairie. Representative Hilferty, first of all, thanks for coming on to talk about this.
Thank you for having me.
So what is it about the current law that you don't like?
So right now, our state law allows each individual school district to govern the discipline of students, including but not limited to corporal punishment. And that is defined in statute as hitting, paddling, striking, spanking, slapping, or any other physical force that causes pain or physical discomfort. Let me quickly clarify what this bill does not do. This bill would not restrict a parent or caretaker's ability to spank or discipline their child outside of the home. We're dealing with the school day, the K through 12 school day.
Yeah, and that's an important distinction that you make because while researching this, I came across some research and findings that indicate that this is a deep cultural divide in our country. You literally have half the country of parents that say, I do spank my kid, and the other half says that they don't. This crosses political, even some of the racial lines as well. So with that in mind, you also have lawmakers that you want to vote for this. They are also different culturally. How do you plan to convince them?
So what we have is it's not all school districts across the state using this. It is a little less than 50% of them, and I can get you an exact number, but we had 744 instances of corporal punishment that occurred in the 2019-2020 school year. So this is happening around the state, and I think the distinction being made, you mentioned that the divide between parents. That's a parent disciplining their child. We're talking about what happens in the school day by a school administrator or teacher. Okay, there's no way to standardize spanking. There's no training that's given in the beginning of the school year as to what to use or how hard the spanking is administered. And to give you an idea, one of the school systems actually has a policy by that school board that the witness to the spanking must hold the child's hand to prevent the child from covering their bottom so that their fingers are not inadvertently broken. So I think that speaks to the force that could potentially be used if we're worried about breaking a child's fingers.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned some of the schools do it, some don't. At last check from the Advocate, I think 40 school systems in the state have banned corporal punishment, and I think 29 school systems allow it. So we have 29 school systems in the state that are still doing this right now.
Correct.
So you've done this before. You've introduced this bill, I think, back in 2021, and it was actually really close. I think you were short by 5 votes. What do you think is going to happen this time?
I'm hoping to have better success. I've talked to a lot of my colleagues about this. We've had a lot of in-depth discussions about corporal punishment and about corporal punishment in the school. And a lot of the times when I do talk to my colleagues, they do mention how they discipline their child at home. And that's why I think it is important to distinguish that we're talking about the school day versus at home. This is only dealing with the school day. So I think that's an important distinction and something I've really been trying to impress upon my colleagues.
Yeah, and I'm just curious about your own personal views on that. With you distinguish between the parents and the school. You say the school shouldn't be doing this. Are you okay with the parents carrying this out? Or are you, because there's research that indicates that it's actually harmful for the kids?
I think that's a decision made in each individual home. I don't think our school system needs to be in the business of spanking children.
All right, so again, this will be voted on. I think it's going to is it going to the House floor?
It's going to be going to the House floor, and what I'm going to ask my colleagues is that we do not allow the hitting of prisoners in the prison system. We do not allow the hitting of juveniles in the juvenile detention system. I'm asking that the same rules be applied to our K through 12 students, that they not be allowed, they're not hit during the school day. We don't do it in prisons. We don't do it in juvenile detention.
Do you know what day they're going to take it up?
Looks like Friday. I'm sorry, Thursday. I apologize.
Thursday? Okay. Well, we will be watching it as well. I want to thank you so much for coming on and explaining your point of view.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Looking ahead to the coming week, tomorrow the Baton Rouge Press Club will be hearing from the Louisiana Budget Project on their legislative goals. Also tomorrow, the Senate Finance Committee will be taking public comment on the state's budget. Well, that's it. We're done. Thanks for joining us for This Week in Louisiana Politics. I'm Fred Childers. Stay safe, stay informed. We'll help you out with that part. And I'll see you next Sunday right here on your local election headquarters.